Michael Winter. I'm originally from England, as you can probably tell from the funny accent. I started in photography 60 odd years ago with my mum's old Kodak box Brownie camera, and it's been a passion of mine ever since. I did have my own studio back in UK, but now I do it just purely for pleasure.
Great. So you want to introduce yourself too?
I'm one of the three partners for Office Divi, Kai, and our partner Sin, and I work with creative teams all the time in software application development all day long, and then we of course have this entrepreneurial startup that's ours. But I work oftentimes with people that are storytelling, and I know I'm just here just to kind of have a moment, just to get a little learnings and a little focus just into thinking about things visually.
We have two team members in the back, Caitlin and Caitlin. We only hire Caitlin, so it's easier. So I'm going to make a quick introduction for Norman Kent. He actually really needs no introduction for those who are in this world of professional photography, stunt work, and movies. But Norman is a passionate photographer, but really known for his work as a cinematographer, as a videographer, and also stunt coordinator in major Hollywood productions. And raise your hands if you've seen these, by the way. The new Godzilla that just came out, have you seen it?
Oh yeah, that was awesome.
Ender's Game with Harrison Ford, that was in here. Yeah. Get Smart a little early on. Okay. Grudge Match. Okay. Cutaway. Drop Zone. Terminal Velocity. Fast and Furious 7.
Yeah.
Did that thing come out yet? Did it?
Fast and Furious 7 is not out yet.
It's not out yet.
Well, that's
And also coming out, Kingsman, Secret Service with Michael Caine and a couple other folks. That's in a couple of weeks. But Norman loves not only photography but also skydiving, and he was able to marry these two passions that he had in his work professionally, and it's awesome when you do what you love and get paid for it, obviously. And he has a very busy schedule, so when we catch him in between projects, we always ask him, would he do something for us, a little speech, a little class, a little workshop, and he's been very, very, really generous doing this now 2-3 times with us. And without further ado, I present to you Norman Kent. Thank
you. It was really interesting because as soon as I moved, work was waiting for me here and they were calling me. And naturally, a lot of the work came here. We shot movies like Drop Zone was shot here in Florida. We shot parts of Eraser with Arnold Schwarzenegger here. And let me explain, Eraser, if you ever looked at the film or if you ever look at it, takes place in a populated area. It takes place in Los Angeles. But there was so much shooting that was more comfortable to do, let's say, in our backyard, which was here, that it made sense to do any kind of shooting that was shooting up towards the sky where it doesn't matter because it's just blue, and shooting it here. So we would be more efficient rather than trying to do jumps into the middle of the city, and the logistics of that and the expense of that were much more complicated. So anytime I had an opportunity to work in my backyard, I did that. And the movie Cutaway, a lot of people kind of went like, what was that? Cutaway was a very similar movie than Drop Zone. It was just a smaller movie. And it was, and I'll show you some pieces of that. It was one of those things that I got a chance to be the director of photography for the picture, for the aerial scenes. I was responsible for 60% of the scenes in the movie, as well as a director of photography, as well as the scene between the actors and the action. And I'll tell you more about that later. But the reason why I'm bringing that up is because that was a movie that we shot lots of it, all of it in Florida, but lots of it in Flagler Beach. We actually did shots where in the story their local drop zone was, they didn't say Flagler Beach and never mentioned it in the movie. A crazy thing, because in a base jump you want the parachute to open fast because you're approaching the ground, you're already low when you jump, and but you don't want it hard because this can hurt picture too, so it was one of those things that was a little bit of a contradiction. But I did good. The reason why I have 3 cameras here, we're kind of going back and forth in some ways. So
That's logical. The next question.
very casual, like I say. This one's a movie camera. It's actually a video camera that we use these days for making motion pictures. Is what we use for all the movies. This is what I shot Godzilla with, and what I shot Ender's Game, and Get Smart. No, actually, Get Smart we're still doing film, movie film. And movie film was a lot heavier and a lot bigger. So this is where now that this is more like a 24-pound setup. It's dropping the weight quite a bit. I have stills always because I like stills. And again, like I say, if you're going to jump one, why not the other one? I have a turn it on here. A trigger that's plugged into the camera, and I push my tongue to activate it. Every time I push my tongue there, it fires the And well, that was my very first helmet setup, and I had a few jumps. And go on. You were asking me something. I'm sorry, I got sidetracked. What did you ask me?
What do you go through? I mean, you visualize a lot of this before you even go out of what you want to end up in, but you have a lot, I'm sure, going on that you go, wow, that would look great.
Yes.
How do you stay focused and capture an amazing moment?
I think that the key thing is in this kind of environment, you really have to pre-plan. First of all, as a photographer or anything you do, the photography, there's a lot of interest here in photography, but imagine that you're going to shoot, let's say, 8 minutes a day. That's all you get. And you get it in 1-minute increments with about an hour and a half in between. So, and you can't talk. And you're relying on your environment around you. So there's a lot of planning that has to go on. Can you please pause there? So you're having to plan, like here, for instance, it's a pre-planned shot. It's right on our beaches here. I was working on a film called Willing to Fly that I did a lot of shooting here in Florida, most of it. And here we're set up, and this person is going to land in a specific direction. It's all planned. In free fall, it's very similar. You plan. Sometimes people have their own jump that they're doing, and most of the time, if it's work related, for instance, it's planned to work around the camera. And even though there was a parachute center at one point, we didn't really need one. We just needed the airport to take off. Most of the scenes were done. That's Tom Berenger there. Most of the scenes were done. And we jumped over the pier because it's closest to 100, which would get us back to the airport the quickest. And that's why we chose that, rather than like if we jump over where I live, then it's a long commute and it defeats the whole purpose as far as efficiency. When you are going from 120 miles an hour and then your parachute pulls you from the shoulders, so if you're in this position like he is, this is the points where you're attached to the parachute. So imagine the parachute goes behind him and pulls from the shoulders backwards. So if I'm like this, it'll pull, the parachute will open that way. And then the helmet has a certain inertia and it wants to keep going. So obviously that's the dangerous part there. So one of the things that I have to do is develop a technique.
Before you have to quit and deploy, about how many seconds do you really have of shooting?
You have, from when you jump to when you deploy, you have about 60 seconds. And so a lot of that time is the choreography of setting up. You exit, and sometimes the exit is the shot, but sometimes, like here, none of it was the jump airplane. Because the jump airplane was sort of the airliner, and it just was a hole. There was never a shot where you look up at the airplane and the person falling. So our airplanes were only elevators, so therefore we don't shoot the exit. We just immediately exit and try to execute the choreography. So that's the idea with it. So I developed that, and that was part of it. And again, the idea is to do that quickly because it happens very, very quick. So you end up in that situation and you end up not hurt. And
What about a neck brace, like a football brace?
Well, a lot of people have brought up the idea of a neck brace. The problem with a neck brace is, okay, so now you're immobile.
Well, they have ones that just so they don't, their head doesn't snap back, they just
right.
around the
But
back.
I want to have, they don't need a lot of, you know, in certain
Right.
players, you don't see a, you know, like a receiver wearing a neck brace because he's going to have to look around. And that's very important because if I have this one being wider than that one, then what am I composing for? Right. It's really hard to do. And also one of the things that's tricky about using a system like this, it's such a different mentality to shoot video than it is to shoot stills, especially on my flying. So for instance, if I'm shooting stills, I can be aggressive, very aggressive, and not care about stability because I'm only catching moments and it's going to freeze the image. So I can go, I want to go there, and you just go. And you take your head and put it in whatever position and stop looking at the subject because aerodynamically you might need to put your head in that position to help you with your flying. And then I come back to shoot the picture. It makes me be more aggressive and faster in my flying so I can then get there and shoot the picture. But that ruins my video. Because now it's jerk. So anytime I'm shooting stills and people go, "Can I see the video?" It's like, they're malfunctioning. Because you really can't. And there's like, and then the people go, "This is a professional." I'm busy. I'm going doing this and doing that.
That would have definitely worked on me.
Are you crazy? My temple on killed that too.
Okay, well that's the
that I do now, and it's kind of a tricky question because in the business of photography, a lot of people think that you should specialize. I have a hard time specializing because I love shooting everything, and it's always a challenge to do something different. So it's really hard to say what I be. It's like I'm driven by photography. I'm attracted by photography, and then whatever I'm passionate about is what ends up in front of my camera. And so we decided to do this trip. We ended up going in there, and it was a disaster. One of the guys caught malaria. We had to bring him out. We were lost in the jungle for days. I don't know how we made it out. We were hallucinating from lack of food. We were scared. We had no weapons. It was just scary.
You are a lucky photographer.
Yeah. You know, one of the locations was a very beautiful little farm house, not a farm, it was a house with its own little grass strip in the San Juan Islands in Washington State. Beautiful area. And I landed and met this family, and this guy happened to have had a really cool story, which was he became a falconer. And he was passionate about falcons. He's a FedEx pilot. His name is Ken Franklin. And he became a skydiver so he could study the bird and train the bird to skydive with him. Wow. And so he did that and told me the story, and I was like, this is fascinating, and showed me this video where you go like in freeze frame mode. It was like, there, and you go, where? There was like this one little blink that went by, Oh, the concept was amazing, but there was no documentation of it.